Well, the only little piece of business we have is, before we get into our program, is our recorder's report from Paul Rubitsky. And let's see, so mainly just some out of period early and late birds. Got a late western kingbird in Tulsa. I think an early winter wren at Williams Center. And I had a winter wren in my yard this afternoon. Hermit thrush at Oxley, early song sparrow. I guess a late Baltimore oriole, a couple of prothonotary warblers at Oxley. A redstart, some yellow warblers. Summer tanager was late. And a rufous hummingbird up in Owasso. So those are the interesting birds that are around. Anybody else seen anything interesting lately?
Juncos are back.
Oh, what?
Yep, juncos are back.
Yep.
Juncos.
Yes.
And,
I'm sure Herman in Guatemala can give us some good reports.
pine siskins.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of reports of pine siskins. Have there been any red-breasted nuthatches locally?
Someone I thought had some
I mean,
around the dam.
like in Tulsa area, Dab.
I think someone had some around the dam.
Yeah, I thought I heard one the other day in Bixby.
Yeah, there's Kimmer.
I've got 2 in Durant coming to feeders.
Hi, Kimmer. Hi, Kimmer. Hi, everybody.
Hey, John, can you mention about the park thing also? The Tulsa Park thing?
Yes, yes, yeah. If you got our Tulsa Audubon email, in there's a link that the Tulsa Parks Department is holding a series of Zoom meetings to get feedback from the public, and they're doing one for each city council district. Although I don't think you necessarily have to be in that district to participate. So there's a series of about, I don't know how many districts are there. There's 9 districts, and some of them already happened. But if you haven't joined one, I encourage you to do so, and particularly encourage you to speak up for Oxley Nature Center, and encourage them to fully fund the center, because they, as you probably, if you're one of our Tulsa folks, you know that they're severely understaffed. You know, they've lost positions, and then several people have retired in recent years, and they've not reopened those positions. So we basically have only 2 or 3 full-time people, manning Oxley and Redbud. So it's restricted the hours they can be open, and with COVID, there's been fewer things going on, but anyway, they're not getting the proper support from the city. So I would encourage you to speak up on behalf of Oxley. And if you don't go to one of the meetings, there's a survey that you can take also. So I encourage everybody to go to the meeting and fill out the survey. And the links to that are on the email. If you're not getting the Tulsa Audubon email, if you go out to our website, you can sign up. Just getting the email is free. You don't have to be a member, although we'd encourage you to join. But we do an email once or twice a month with updates on what's going on. And you can find out about that there, or just Google Tulsa Parks, Zoom calls. You can probably get to it that way also. Anything else, Mary, we should be mentioning?
Nope, except that we have Doug next month.
Yep. Doug Wood is our speaker next month. And Doug, what are you talking about next month? I don't recall.
I'm going to give a talk called Ghana Fly Now, about birding in Ghana in West Africa.
Okay. And so I encourage you guys, even if you're not from around here, you can feel free to join. You don't have, and Doug gives we have Doug pretty much every year. He gives a program, and we bring him back by popular demand. So he definitely worth coming to see Doug. And it's usually one of when we used to have in-person meetings, he would be one of our, most well-attended meetings every year. So I encourage you to come. Okay, is Jay on? I don't see Jay here. Could have him introduce Jeff, but I think it sounds like most of you guys know Jeff because you're related to him or grew up with him.
Wait, some of us never grew up.
Well, that's true. You were
trying
knew
hard
him
not
as a
to.
child, let's say.
Yeah, yesterday.
And I did not prepare my little bio to introduce Jeff, but he's recently retired and really devoting a lot of time to a lot of really good work between Audubon and Scouts and church and other stuff. So he's keeping busy and keeping very productive here in retirement. So Jeff, I will go ahead and turn this over to you to begin the program.
I think I am talking now. You should be able to hear me. There is a chat function on here that I'm pretending that John Kennington will be monitoring. I tend to be kind of long-winded and wordy. I'm sure we'll be out before breakfast. And it's kind of weird not having an audience out there to laugh at my feeble jokes every 10 minutes or so. So I will just. That was
a good one, Jeff. That was a good one.
Thank you, John. So about making your yard bird friendly. So, this is a quote from Sir David Attenborough, who's a famous guy. Everyone likes birds. What wild creature is more accessible to our eyes and ears, as close to us and everyone in the world, as universal as a bird? And who doesn't like David Attenborough? The birds, I guess the thing is, birds are highly visual and auditory creatures. So their vision and hearing is very important to them as it is to us. So in some ways, we are maybe more attuned to the bird world than like mammals that are, use sense of smell much more than we do. And certainly we're more attuned to them than to lizards and frogs and insects and bugs and slugs and so forth. So we all like birds. We all like David Attenborough. A little background, there was a major research project results released just about a year ago. Researchers from Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology and various government agencies and a lot of universities. They looked at data from over 100 years of Christmas bird counts, 50 years of breeding bird surveys. In the past couple of decades, researchers have been able to glean a lot of information about bird migration from weather radar stations, and some other long-term studies of smaller groups of birds, but those were the main ones. And in the last 50 years, the bird population of North America has lost about 2.9 billion birds, or between 25 and 30% of our bird populations. And it's not uniform across different guilds of birds. See, grassland birds are down are over 50%, shorebirds 37%, eastern forest birds, which would account for most of our backyard birds in Tulsa and farther east. Not so bad, but there are still some losses. Blue jays down 25%, rose-breasted grosbeaks, which I at least have had at my feeder in my yard, down a quarter. Baltimore orioles, which come to eat oranges frequently, down by a third. Dark-eyed juncos and white-throated sparrows down by about a third. So there is an issue here, and I'm not going to go through into the causes of all of these, but just that birds face many issues throughout their lives. What can we as humans do to help? So all animals, including birds, have three basic needs: food, water, and shelter. So I'm just going to go through all of these. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. I'm not going to answer people's individual questions about their yards, because everybody's yard is different. Everybody's thoughts for what they would like to have in their yard are different. So that's kind of beyond the scope of this. But if I were a pirate, I'd say we were talking about guidelines. They're guidelines. So we'll start with food. Food broken down into various categories: seeds, insects, berries, fruits, nuts. Parentheses I called suet, because what is sold as suet cakes. I mean, suet is the fat around beef kidneys technically, or originally, but now it's sold under, peanut butter and any kind of fat and so forth. And then nectar. I'll go through these, but the first question is, does feeding birds really benefit the birds? And in general, most of the time, not really. I mean, very few birds spend all day coming to bird feeders. We like to have them. They brighten our lives, but they're out feeding. They may just be going from your feeder to your neighbor's feeder to the other neighbor's feeders, but generally they're foraging on wild food as much as they're at the feeders. So generally, except in the case of like a snowstorm or an ice storm in the middle of winter, when food really gets covered up, feeding the birds is more for our own benefit than for the benefit of the birds. But okay, do it anyway. So there's all kinds of food you can provide for birds. There can be store-bought food, or you can grow your own. And in general, if you're growing your own, you want to do native foods. But among seeds, the most common kinds, that the number one go-to bird seed you can do is black oil sunflower seed. It's available in stores everywhere, and it's a good general purpose food for seed eaters. Nyjer, or what used to be called thistle, safflower, and all kinds of mixes. But black oil sunflower seed, this is mostly what I feed in my own feeders. And it's like I said, you can get various price points depending on how clean and well sorted it is. You can pay more or less, but it's available in your garden center or hardware store or a big box store, wherever. The one downside to it is the shells, the husks. The birds don't eat those, and they tend to collect underneath. But you can attract a lot of seed-eating birds with sunflower seed. If you're going for finches, like goldfinches and pine siskins and purple finches, which you see illustrated on this bag, Nyjer, it used to be called thistle. It does come from Africa, or at least originated in Africa. It's a very small seed, and the finches that really like it in a tube feeder. I'll talk a little bit about different kinds of feeders in a little bit. But it's a very small seed. But if you're going for the finches, this is a very good option. One problem with Nyjer, at least in my experience, is it does have a limited shelf life, 3 to 6 months. It's rather heat sensitive. So if you have some in a feeder and the birds just quit coming to it, it may be time to throw it out and just go to the store and get a new bag of it, because it will go bad eventually. Sunflower seed is pretty stable. Safflower is a good alternative if you're getting a lot of house sparrows and starlings and grackles, which I refuse to call undesirable species in public, but they're species that you may not want to attract, especially to your feeder. Cardinals are really, they will go for safflower feed, and some of the other finches, it may take them a few days to get used to it, but safflower is pretty good. Bird feeders, there are all different designs. The general hopper feeder, like this one, that has perches along the side and just a big hopper in the middle, kind of a general all-purpose Gets a lot of different variety. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the finches really like the tube feeders. This tube feeder looks like it's got Nyjer and probably millet, which is another good choice for birds. A platform feeder for ground feeding birds like juncos and white-throated sparrows. They come to a tube feeder or a hopper feeder, but some kind of a hopper that's just flat and open. And some people just like a different whole variety of feeders to get just that will attract different species of birds. So the more variety of feeders and food you have, the more variety of birds you'll get. An important thing to remember is you have to keep your bird feeders clean. This is a house finch right here, and you can see its right eye is pretty much closed over by house finch eye disease, and I forget the specific name of it. But it's caused by a bacterium that grows on like bird droppings and piles up seed hulls. And at times it has been very prevalent in population. It's not clear if it's spread from bird to bird or if they just pick it up. You know, some feeders have a little tray underneath it that collect the dropped seeds, and because some birds, some chickadees and blue jays and woodpeckers will go to a feeder and they'll like throw out half a dozen good seeds before they get the heaviest one. It's like they can detect the weight of the seed meat inside, and they'll toss out a bunch of them before they get one they like. So if having a tray at the bottom of the feeder will help collect those, and other birds will come along and eat them. But those trays will also collect bird droppings, and some of these diseases will grow. It's a breeding place for some bacteria and fungi. So every few months, you need to take your feeders down, take them apart. You can see this feeder has screws in the bottom. You can take the screws out, take the base off, soak it in a bleach solution, let it dry, put it back together. If you see birds like this with this house finch with a closed up eye, it's probably time to, it's probably past time. It may be your neighbors aren't keeping their feeders clean, but do what you can at least. But instead of buying seeds at the store, you can also grow your own. Coneflowers, echinacea are a widely used native plant that the goldfinches and other finches and sparrows will come and just take if you don't deadhead your flowers, they'll just come and land on the dead flower stalk and eat the seeds right off of them. You can grow sunflowers, big sunflower heads, and get your house sparrows coming to your yard. So, but you can take the sunflower head and chop it off and just let it dry in your garage or someplace, and then later in the fall and winter, you can put them out and attract, I hope, more than just house sparrows, but who knows. Insects, you can buy store-bought insects. You can buy mealworms, either alive or not, or crickets. A lot of the like bluebirds and robins and a lot of insectivorous birds that may not come to a seed feeder will come to a feeder if you put out different kinds of insects, alive or dead. Oops. Mealworms you can buy. Here's the dried mealworms. Here's the live mealworms you can buy. You just put out a suspension feeder, hanging feeder. There's all kinds of specialized feeders. You can go broke buying bird feeders and bird food. So I don't recommend that, but there's a chickadee grabbed a mealworm to take off. So it's got a nice little meal. But even better is homegrown insects. This is a chickadee with a caterpillar in its beak. And the study done just a few years ago showed that one pair of Carolina chickadees needs over 4,000 caterpillars to raise their young. So every pair of Carolina chickadees is really eating a lot of caterpillars. So a lot of people like a nice pristine garden or backyard. They don't like pests. They don't like insects out there. But caterpillars are not pests. They're natural bird food. And it's important to grow native plants in your yard because they will support a much greater density and variety of caterpillars and other insects than non-native plants. So you'll have better variety and number of birds. A lot of plants that you buy in garden centers are sold with a marketing strategy of no pests, meaning they don't get insects that come and eat them. Well, if you don't have insects, you're not going to have so many birds in your yard. Native plants may not be quite as showy and pest free, but I think to me the birds more than make up for it. So if you go native, you will get more birds. I'm not suggesting that you need to go 100% native. Many people would. I have a character flaw. I love azaleas, which don't support a lot of insects or birds, but I try to have a good variety of native plants in my yard also. Reducing the use of chemicals. A lot of people just, you see the lawn care companies out in the streets with companies putting out herbicides and insecticides, all kinds of pesticides, all of which they may reduce the insect population. Indirectly, they may affect your bird populations in a long-term, more slower effect. Berries, fruits, nuts can be store-bought. Dried fruit, oranges for orioles. Baltimore orioles love. You take an orange, cut it in half, put it on a stake out on your patio or somewhere. Orioles love that. You can try about any fresh fruit. Just don't let it stay out there until it rots and gets bad. Peanuts, shelled or in the shell, as long as they are fresh, they'll any raw nuts you want. Oranges, here's the Baltimore Oriole with the oranges. People can go through a lot of oranges in a day feeding the orioles. But also you can grow your own. Here's a nice poison ivy plant. And over on the right side, you see the poison ivy berries, which many of our native birds just love. Okay, this is a joke. All right, you can laugh. I'm not advocating you plant poison ivy in your yards, unless you've got neighbor kids you want to keep outside. But native plants, you can grow a lot of native plants that will set seeds or fruit or berries that will attract birds. Peanuts, you can feed them in the shell or outside of the shell. I think if they're roasted, as long as they don't have any salt in them, I think they're probably okay. But I recommend fresh peanuts. And there, like as I've mentioned, for other types of feed, there are all kinds of specialized feeders you can buy. You can grow your own nuts: pecans, acorns, hickory nuts, any kind of nut will attract certain kinds of birds. Some nuts you may need to bust them open with a hammer so that the birds can get to them more easily. But acorns, a lot of just having an oak tree in your yard will provide a lot of food for blue jays and crows and woodpeckers. This happens to be the Florida scrub jay, the bird that I wrote my doctoral dissertation on. And no, it's not found in Oklahoma, but it's just a beautiful bird. And I wanted to share this. And I'm speaking and I'm in charge, so I get to do what I want to. A bad thing is bread. Do not feed bread. White bread especially, it doesn't have that many. It's not that good for humans, and it's even worse for birds. And especially if people that throw a lot of bread out and then it sits out there and gets wet and gets moldy, and that's really bad for the birds. And it may attract the house sparrows, which you may or may not want to have in your yard. So be careful. No bread. Use natural foods, just as you would feed your own children. That's what you need to provide to your birds. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, plant native. On the left here, we've got a deciduous holly, possum haw. On the right is beautyberry. These are native plants that provide a lot of color in your yard, but they also are good food sources for the birds. So you can go to your favorite nursery or greenhouse, or the big box stores, may not have so much in the way of native plants. The more locally owned and operated places are generally going to be better. But if you have herb and garden fairs in your area, if there's local, um, usually some local companies that are growing, they may be growing a lot of vegetable or tomato plants that you can set out, but a lot of them more and more are growing native plants for birds as well as butterflies. I'm not talking so much about butterflies in this talk, but a lot of things that you do for birds will be helpful to the native butterfly populations also. Or you can visit Tulsa Audubon Society's Backyard Wildlife Garden Habitat Tour and Native Plant Sale, usually in May. In these times, it was held in September, and there's 4 or 5 yards that the owners make available for people to come in and look at what they're growing. And there's always 4 or 5 local plant or regional plant vendors that have a lot of mostly native, some non-native plant. Like I said, that's not necessarily always a bad thing. But you can go see what the plants look like in somebody's yard, and then the vendors are there to talk to and to make sales also. So this year, because of the COVID, we decided to move it to September. And I think it was a pretty successful turnout, and I think people bought a lot of plants. So there was two big yards that were side or back to back, so people could roam between them, and there was plenty of room for everybody to spread out. So support your local vendors when you can. Some of the problems you have with non-native plants, well, is that they may attract non-native birds. Like this is a European starling that is perching in a Bradford pear or some sort of a Colliery pear, which has these little tiny fruits on them, which, Bradford pears, I have a lot of issues with Bradford pears anyway. They can be very attractive at certain times of the year, but when they get very big, it's a very weak and brittle wood that will fall over. And the early thinking, I believe, Dr. Lyons may contradict or correct me on this, but there was that they would not spread I don't know if they were thinking that the fruits were sterile or not, but the fruits are definitely not sterile. In the springtime, early springtime, you can drive around northeast Oklahoma at least, and just like out in pastures and see these little green trees that are all blooming with white blossoms that are Bradford pears. But the starlings is one. Starlings eat fruits, and I've seen them avidly eating the fruits of the Bradford pears. And then they will take them and they will defecate the seeds after they've digested the pulp off the fruit and spread the Bradford pears around more. So it's kind of a double whammy going there. Nectar. It's easy to make your own hummingbird nectar feeders. 1 part refined white sugar, no honey, 4 parts water. Boil the water first, add in the white sugar, let it cool down. You don't need any red dye. If there's red on the feeder, that's all you need. That will attract the birds. The nectar itself doesn't need to be red, and there's at least some evidence that the red dye is actually bad for the birds. But it's important also, like with the seed feeders, you need to keep the hummingbird feeders clean. And depending on how hot it is, if it's 80, 90 degrees, you may need to change and clean the feeders every 3 or 4 days. If it's not that cool, you may be able to get by with 4 or 5 days or even a little bit longer. But it's easy to make your own. I would not bother with store-bought nectar, especially if it's got red dye in it. It's easy enough to make your own. You can either make up just what you need when you fill your feeders, or you can make a bunch of it and keep it in the refrigerator till you need it. But no, if it's store-bought nectar, I would not bother with. The question right now that it's October and starting to cool down is how long to leave hummingbird feeders up. This is a question that comes up every year. And one answer is as long as you want to. The hummingbirds in Tulsa have pretty much all gone south on their way to, Guatemala, maybe, Central America, Northern South America. Whenever you see, there's a lot of hummingbirds in September. So as the numbers dwindle as they move farther south, if you don't see them around for a few days, it's a good time to take them down. The thing that happens if you leave your hummingbirds up longer, even if there's no activity, sometimes in October, November, December, you may get that last hummingbird that's kind of lost. And it may be one of the birds that's not normally found here. So there was a report of a rufous hummingbird in Owasso or someplace north of Tulsa just recently. The rufous hummingbird is a western hummingbird. It nests clear up into Alaska. This is usually it sticks to the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, and heads on south. But in recent years, there's been as people have kept hummingbird feeders and been banding them, they found out that there's a lot of western hummingbirds that move east in fall and winter. And sometimes they show up in Oklahoma. If you're going to keep your feeders up, you need to figure out some way to keep the nectar from freezing so the hummingbirds can actually get to it. One way is, people put string Christmas lights along them so they generate enough heat. Some people bring their feeders in at night and put them out in the morning if it's going to freeze, or they put heat lamps on them or whatever. It's a lot of work if you're going to keep a feeder up all winter long. It can be rewarding, but it's like I said, it takes some work, and you have to figure out how to, because the hummingbirds are going to, if it's there, it's going to want to start feeding pretty early in the morning, earlier than some of us care to get up in the morning. So you have to figure out how you make the nectar available in a liquid form pretty early in the morning. Homegrown, I think, is the best way to do it. In my experience is that if you've got feeders and flowers that produce nectar, the hummingbirds will generally go to the flowers before they come to the feeders. Excuse me. So you can go to your I'm getting all choked up here talking about this. The generally flowers with a long, narrow corolla that are red or orange. So the hummingbird bill can reach way down into the bottom of the flower to get the nectar that's in there. Go to your garden center, find out what specific species are recommended for your area. So that pretty much covered food. Next is water. All birds need food, water, and shelter. Here's water. 3 things: it needs to be clean, it needs to be liquid, not frozen, and moving water is better. So clean water, if you have a bird bath, you need to rinse it out every few days, every couple of weeks at least. I mean, I'm back up. Change the water every day if you possibly can. If you can just hose the water out, put fresh water in every day. It needs to be liquid. You can buy all kinds of heated bird water devices. This is one down here on the lower left is just as a separate thing you buy and plug it in and just place it in your feeder. The one in the upper right here, there's a heater embedded inside that bird bath. It keeps, and a lot of these are thermostatically controlled, so they're only kick in when the temperature gets to about freezing or below. Moving water is better. Either a bubbler or a mister or a spray or a fountain. It's like the birds can hear that. They can detect that water is present. Moving water tends to stay a little cleaner. It helps reduce the amount of mosquito larvae that are growing in it. Also, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. People can go to do very, very elaborate bird baths and bird fountains and water features and all kinds of stuff. But even just a bird bath out in your backyard, if you hose it out and change the water every day or two, will attract a pretty good variety of birds. The other thing is shelter. So they need shelter for a lot of different activities: feeding, nesting, resting, roosting. Okay, so everybody say that with me: feeding, nesting, resting, roosting. Okay. So feeding, they need, if you're going to have bird feeders, they need to be places where the birds can get to them, but the predators have a little hard time. So not out in the middle of an open pasture, but with trees around, but far enough away from the trees that cats and squirrels and so forth can't get to them too easily. Excuse me. Keep cats indoors. I'm not gonna go extensively about this, but some studies have shown that outdoor cats, whether they're feral or well-kept cats, that people that run around outdoors, that come indoors and outdoors, are one of the major causes of mortality in wild bird populations. So keep your cats indoors. Birds need shelter in the nesting periods also. So you can build or buy a variety of bird houses. You can just leaving natural cavities. A lot of people that like birds, just if they have a dead tree on your property, just leave it standing. You may or may not get pileated woodpeckers, or you might get pileated woodpeckers. How do you pronounce that? But different kinds, smaller, there are half a dozen kinds of smaller woodpeckers that rely on dead trees to build their nests in. And then other birds, after the woodpeckers have abandoned them, other birds like chickadees and wrens and titmice and bluebirds will use the former woodpecker holes to build their own nests in. There's last few years, there have been a lot of big market in decorative bird houses. I don't know if this chickadee here at the bottom is really interested in this as a birdhouse, or you're just looking at it around. I don't know if the decorative ones are, how they work as far as functional birdhouses, but just a plain simple wood birdhouse is really all you need. But a generic birdhouse will just get generic birds. All birds have different requirements according to their species, depending on their size and how big an opening they need, how deep it is, so forth. So depending on if you want chickadees or bluebirds or whatever you want, you need to get the birdhouse that is specific for that kind of bird. You can buy, it's easy to find plans to build your own birdhouses. They need to, just simple wood, nice cedar planks are very nice. If you're going to make your own, make sure that, or buy them. It helps if there's an easy way to get in the front so you can clean them out every year. You may get, you may need, if you're so inclined, some people clean out house sparrows and such from their bluebird boxes. But another issue, if the nests aren't cleaned out every year, is there are different types of bird lice and bird mice that can get in there and cause problems with the birds. Where you put the nest box is important too. So you need to know, eastern bluebirds need to be kind of in an edge habitat with trees not too far away, but they like pretty open area. They won't nest in the middle of a dense forest. Wrens and chickadees will not nest typically where bluebirds do. They like pretty heavy wood. So understand, your yard, what kinds of birds you'd like to attract, and do a little research to figure out where to put the nest box and exactly the dimensions and so forth of the nest box. Sometimes people will put out string, colored yarn and stuff. And well, the birds like to use this in their nest. Yeah, they will. They'll use it, and sometimes the pieces are too long, and the birds will strangle in it. Or if the different kinds of yarn if they get wet and then when they dry, they contract and they're just no good at all. So don't put out any artificial thing. Nesting materials that, hair from your dog is fine. But generally, birds are pretty good at finding what they need to build their nests with. And just resting, birds need places to just hang out. Bluebirds, this is an example of feeding also. They will eat the berries off of the eastern red cedar tree shown here. But the red cedars and other evergreen trees also provide shelter places where birds can just spend out during the daytime. The birds aren't usually having to search for food every minute of every day. So they need places to just hang out. So some trees with good cover are also helpful for your bird population. Or brush piles. There you can just take branches that fall down and throw them in a pile in the back corner of your yard, or you can get instruction on the internet for very elaborate brush piles with drain tiles. And I mean, it looks like you're going to build a Boy Scout campfire here. It's set the woods on fire. But and I'm kind of making light of it. But if you want a variety of bird populations, you need a variety of resting situations that they can use. You have to watch out for predators like this sharp-shinned hawk here, because they will. I mean, the sharp-shinned and Cooper's hawks, they make their living on birds. Personally, I think it's kind of cool to have the predatory birds around. It kind of gives a different meaning to the phrase bird feeder. So having, and this gets back to where you put your bird feeders, is having them not right next to a heavy bush that a hawk can hang out in or a snake can hang out in, but close enough where your feeder birds can duck into cover pretty quickly if a hawk comes through the area. Roosting, they like to have places to roost. This is, some of you know Ellie Womack, the hummingbird queen of Oklahoma. She had this carved coconut hanging out on her patio, and she had Carolina wrens roosting in this. And wrens will frequently roost on porches or under the eaves of your house, just places to spend the night. Some will spend the night in the bird houses that you have available. Okay. A downside, a very important downside to feeding the birds and having a lot of them in your habitat is windows on your house. Birds see their reflections in the window and they will fly into it and they will get killed. And just like with the cats, bird mortality from windows is one of the major sources of bird mortality. So there's a couple of particular problems. One, if you have glass on both sides of the house where the birds can see clear through from one side to the other, they may think they've got a straight path they can fly through, and they fly into the window. If you have greenery inside the window, they may try to get into that. But you'll detect pretty quickly if you're getting birds, and part of the problem is how close or how far from the windows are your feeders. The farther away they are, the feeders are from the window, the less chance of birds flying into the window. You also don't get to see them so well. So, and having them right outside the window versus kind of off to the side is probably a little bit better. there are various materials you can buy to put on your windows. People will hang stringers outside the window. There are several companies now that market some sort of translucent tape that you can put on the outside of your window that the birds can see, and it's maybe not quite so visible to humans. So they'll at least identify that there is a window or something there that is maybe not just clear air. So you need to, and it may mean you need to move your windows, your feeders farther away from the windows. So watch out for that. Here's some of the different types of tape you can buy from, like, American Bird Conservancy is one organization that has done a really good job on preventing window kill birds, and they've got a lot of good information on their website. So just vertical stripes, this kind of a fritting pattern, different screen, very fine screen, or something you hang on the outside of your window to keep so either the birds can identify that it's not just clear space there, or that they're an actual physical obstruction right outside the window that they're not going to get tangled up in. On a related subject, what if you find a baby bird in your yard? This is really not the time of year here when that's particularly relevant, but spring's not going to come. Spring's not too far away. Tulsa Audubon Society has a related organization called Wing It, Wild Creatures in Need group in Tulsa. John can correct me later on, but it's not unusual. Every spring people say, find baby birds in their yard, and what do they need to do about it? Usually the best thing is nothing. Leave it alone. Might keep an eye on it. You know, birds like this brown thrasher fledgling down here in the lower right. This one may have left the nest a little too early. It may not be able to fly real well yet. Maybe just hopping around, but the parents are probably right nearby, and they're continuing to tend it and bring it food. Best thing to do in that case is just leave it alone. But on the Wing It webpage, they've got this flow chart that says, I found a baby bird, now what? Well, if it's hurt or sick, it walks you through, and there tells you, you may need to find a wildlife rehabilitator in your area. If the bird's feathered and it's probably fledgling, the probably best thing to do is leave it for its parents. If it's not feathered, it's a nestling, then maybe you can find the nest and put it back in the nest. It's, when I was a kid, we thought, well, you don't want to ever touch a baby bird because you'll get your human scent on the bird, and then the parents won't come around. That is not true. That most birds really don't have a very good sense of smell, and if you just picking it up and putting it back in the nest isn't going to be a problem. So there's a flow chart you can find on the Wing It web page that'll help you determine, do you need to take any action at all, and what action to take. Okay, so I said at the beginning, all animals, including birds, need 3 basic things. I'm going to add 4. I'm going to say love. They need food, water, shelter, and love, like all of us do. So, oh gosh. There's this guy, birding guru Ken Kaufman, says, birding is something that we do for enjoyment. So if you enjoy it, you're a good birder. If you enjoy it a lot, you're a great birder. And to that, I add, be kind. Be kind to the birds. Be kind to other birders. Be kind to all the people you meet while birding. Just be kind. I see pictures of people, well, they see posted on Facebook, oh, I found a bird nest, so I wanted to get a picture of the babies, so you get up real close to the babies, and that keeps the parents away. It may scare the young out of the nest. People want to, climbing fences to walk across property to get close to some rare bird to get a good picture of it. That's not kind to the bird or the other birders. Just being being helpful. There are unfortunately some kind of snobbish birders out there that are really not helping. I don't want any of us to be those people. If somebody's just getting started in birding, I want to try to help them and encourage them. And if they can't identify the bird they're looking at, help them if they want the help. And if they don't want the help, just encourage them to keep looking at birds and just enjoying it in whatever way they want to. So just being kind and friendly to the birds and other birders, and just being kind in general. So back to the study I referenced at the start about the big population loss of North American birds in the last 50 years. Kind of related, coming up, I think this is related, came out about the same time. Seven simple actions to help bird populations. And a lot of these I have talked about already. Use of pesticide, avoiding pesticides, using native plants, keep cats indoors, make windows safer. Do citizen science, which is really just keeping track of the birds you have in your backyard. There, the different feeder watch programs and big backyard bird count and so forth, where you can contribute by keeping tallies of the kinds and numbers of birds in your backyard. Just reducing plastic use in general. Drink shade grown coffee, because that's very good for our birds that migrate to the tropics. And I know there's some very good shade grown coffee comes from Guatemala. But be careful when you're shopping for your coffee to buy coffee that's good for birds. So here's the same things: windows safer day and night, cats indoors. I didn't talk on the windows safer day and night. I mean, night lighting can be an issue too. Having buildings lit up at night during bird migration especially can really confuse the birds and get them flying into buildings and windows. Cats, reduce. When I talk about native plants, I just said in general, but a lot of people are reducing the amount of grass in their lawn and replacing it by native plants. So it increases the amount of plants that are healthy for birds, but also saves you time and money in mowing your yard. I have not taken that lesson well enough to heart myself yet. No, I apologize. Avoiding pesticides, drink coffee that's good for birds. Plastics, that's a whole nother issue. The watch birds, share what you see, and that's a citizen science deal. And I guess that's all. So I'm going to stop sharing here and turn it over to Mr. Kennington. And I might, if John wants to allow a few key questions from people, I would entertain a few questions. Hi, question. Welcome to my neighborhood.
Okay, 1 second here.
Do we have? I don't know. I haven't been checking our chat screen here.
Yeah, well, we had a few comments because Ken said, well, at least if you can't attract David Attenborough to your yard, at least you can attract birds.
Yeah.
And Wild Birds Unlimited is a really great source for bird seed. I will mention Tulsa Audubon. We have an annual bird seed sale, but where folks pre-order your bird seed and then pick it up. But the pre-order deadline was last week, so this is too late to get in on that this year. But you can keep an eye on that for next year. But Wild Birds Unlimited is a really good place to go get your seed, and you can be sure it's good quality seed.
Yeah.
And
they've got
thanks for the shout out.
Huge variety of feeders and bird baths and all kinds of birding merchandise.
Yeah. And anyway, thanks for the shout out to poison ivy. And
hey, poison
Doug pointed
ivy.
out white-eyed vireos like to chow down on poison ivy, and a lot of other birds too. And comment was, you mentioned beautyberry, and just be sure you get the American beautyberry instead of the, I guess there's an alien version of that you can get in the garden stores. And a few other hellos and thank yous in the comments. You can look at those when we're done.
Hello to Octavio in Guatemala. And yes, thank you all. Thank you all, everyone, for joining. Anything else? I can.
Yeah, I'm just trying to unmute everybody. If anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself and feel free to ask.
I have a question about acorns.
Yes.
Can birds crack these acorns? Or do they just wait maybe for them to be squashed in the street or something?
Well, I think some of both. But certainly blue jays and woodpeckers, I mean, little, I don't know if, I could defer to my friend, Mr. Kaufman or Dr. Wood over there, but I'm certainly blue jays, because you'll see the smaller acorns, especially, you'll see them, they'll gather, half a dozen acorns in their throat and in their beak and fly off, and they will, many of the jays and crows will even cache acorns in a tree or in the ground or someplace for eating later. They just hammer on those acorns. They can bust them open without too much trouble. I suspect that nuts that get run over in the street, there's probably a lot of birds that eat the nut particles from that too. I don't know that specific. Oh, actually, speaking of, I see Kimberly Kaufman there. I got to give her a shout, because a couple of groups I did not speak about on this were birds that feed on live prey, except I mentioned the hawks, the sharp-shinned and Cooper's hawks that may come eat your birds at your bird feeder. I didn't talk about the carrion feeders, those that feed on dead prey, but some people have been known to take roadkill home to their yard and use it to attract turkey vultures and other carrion feeders. And that's not exactly my cup of tea, but hey, I think it's great. I think it's great. Yeah, yay, Kimmer.
Extreme bird feeding.
It is. But what a lovely thing to do. Yeah. Better than making Ken lay out there. So.
Smelly but interesting. Not Ken, the carrion.
Well.
I'm sure there have been times.
Enough of that. So, anything else? Anybody? I do appreciate everybody dialing in Zoom or phone or however you've done it, and especially getting folks from Guatemala. That just makes my heart go pitter patter. I'm just thrilled, and I love my trip to Guatemala, and I hope to get back there again someday. Doug Wood, I think, would like to go there also. He's been there a time or two.
I have a question.
Who's this?
This is Fran. I'm in Oklahoma City. I tuned in late because I didn't bother to put Zoom on earlier. So I tuned in late. Is there some place I can watch the beginning of this?
Yes, it will eventually be on the Tulsa Audubon website on our YouTube channel.
Great.
It may be a couple of weeks because we are recording it and we'll download it, and then we got to massage it a bit to get it onto YouTube. But it will eventually be on our. If you just go to tulsaaudubon.org, and you'll be able to find it there in a few weeks probably.
Great.
Because I
Great.
had a couple of people that contacted me, said they wanted to watch this, but somebody had another Zoom meeting at the same time. Can you believe that?
And the Dodgers are playing.
Well, that's true. I need to get the TV on.
Yeah, as soon as this is over, I'm going into the other room and I'm
Yeah.
watching the Dodgers.
Yeah. Go team. Go team.
Go team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, this is
Well-
Julia. I was wondering if you had any suggestions for discouraging birds like starlings that will occasionally turn up at the feeders without discouraging other birds.
Yeah.
I tend
mean,
to go out and say terrible things to them, but they don't seem to care.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, certainly the tube feeders with finch food, are not going to get a lot of starlings. And there's some of the feeders that have such small perches that the starling can't grab them. There's suet feeders you can buy that are like a little house that you can put, that has the mesh opening is on the bottom side. And they are marketed as being starling proof. The woodpeckers are much more nimble, agile. They can hang on to trees in a lot of different, better ways than starlings can. I can vouch that these feeders are not 100% starling proof, but that'll help. There are times of the years when, like in late summer, you get like all the young starlings and young house sparrows are out. And I just quit feeding then. Because starlings and house sparrows are so versatile, which is why they're so common. They're, they're very adaptable and good at getting in, eating a lot of different kinds of foods. I don't know if some of the other, if Ken or Doug or somebody has some other thoughts out there on starlings or.
They are legally classified as a pest species, so just leave it there.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank you, Ken, or Jeff, for
one of us.
I'm just looking at Ken here. Ken, thank you for joining, and Jeff, thank you for the presentation.
Glad to. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we enjoyed it a lot. What a great presentation. I just, I've been listening to you talk for quite a few years now, but I love the way you lay things out in such an organized way. There's so much information, and you slip in this dry humor that, you really have to pay attention to every sentence. But
other than that, it was great.
Anyway.